Hi, my name is Jen, and for those of you who have been following me, you know that I am on a very important journey, and that is a journey to break free of the destructive patterns of disordered eating and in order to embrace a nourishing and vibrant lifestyle. I am using an original acronym of the word NOURISHER to act as a roadmap or in order to succinctly communicate to myself and to other people what my main priorities are on my healing journey. So I just want to take a few minutes to help unpack and describe that acronym to you a little bit more in detail. So I want to start with the letter N. I love that notice my emotions, which is what the letter N stands for in the Nourisher acronym, comes first, because I really believe that this is a first priority for those of us who deal with disordered eating. Research shows, and with all of the people that I have shared my journey with, who identify also having had similar journeys, there seems to be a very strong pattern that people who struggle with disordered eating almost always also struggle with the ability to notice, articulate, soothe, quiet, and handle emotions. This is a very important skill, and often people with eating disorders are very skilled at noticing the emotions of others, helping to quiet or soothe the emotions of others, but are not as skilled, do not have that capacity, or have chosen for, maybe even subconsciously for a variety of reasons to not feel or express those emotions. What often happens is that the eating disorder almost becomes like a red herring or like a distraction from the very difficult emotions that we are actually feeling, that we don't have the capacity to deal with, and therefore our brain focuses on the eating disorder and on the compulsion around food, exercise, body image, in order to distract us from these feelings that are so difficult to manage. So becoming aware of our emotions, becoming aware of my emotions, being able to identify them, name them, ideally articulate them to others or in my spiritual journey to God, that is a key point in the healing journey. Then to learn what to do with those emotions when they're so overwhelming. How do we actually become emotionally resilient and able to quiet, calm, listen to all of those different urges and emotions in order to, like the gas light in a car, you wouldn't ignore that. So we need to be listening also to those emotional lights that come on and not have them totally overwhelm us and not stuff them deep inside. So noticing my emotions is a key thing for me in this journey. Opening up to others is another key thing. Again, for many of us with disordered eating patterns, and certainly for me, it is very easy for me to have others open up to me, but it is not very easy for me to actually take what's happening on the inside of my heart and my mind and reveal that to other people. What often happens with disordered eating is that it is a all-consuming battle that happens inside of our hearts and our minds, and yet people on the outside have no idea that this battle is raging within us. So to be able to learn how to take what's happening on the inside and actually reveal it to save people, that is a very important part of this healing journey. Understanding the cycle has been critical for me. For years and years, I have dealt with a challenging relationship with food, but I had no idea that it was an eating disorder. When I was officially diagnosed with an eating disorder, I then came in contact with or was made aware of the eating disorder cycle for the first time, and it blew my mind. Because before that, I just thought that I was either doing well with food or not well with food. Those are the only two options. And basically what that meant for me was that I was either binging and totally abusing food in my body, or I was restricting, which means I was doing something very extreme in order to manage food, manage the way that it impacted my body and weight and body image, etc. But it was one or the other. And I didn't realize that it was a very predictable pattern and cycle that I was on and that I was just rotating between. So being aware of the cycle is so important in order to help keep us off of that roller coaster ride that is the disordered eating cycle. Rewire our brain, rewire my brain, that's what the first R stands for. And this is such a hopeful piece of the journey for me. What might sound not hopeful is that so much of our, rapid neurological development happens in the earliest years of life, and particularly, areas of our brain like our attachment center, the way that basically not dictates, but largely influences how we show up in relationships, what we expect from relationships. That forms primarily in the first 3 years of our lives and really can impact relationships forever thereafter. But the good news is that it's not set in stone. We have been designed, I believe, by God to have neuroplasticity and to be able to continue to grow and change our neurological connections and the way that we process life forever. And this is really hopeful news, because those of us who deal with disordered eating, we're in these entrenched patterns of ways of relating to ourselves and others, to our bodies, and it can feel like a trap that we can never get out of. But the good news is that as we have new neurological, relational experiences, we can actually form new neural pathways and actually learn how to experience joy and rest and peace in ways that previously we experienced anxiety or depression. And it's so hopeful to know that it is very hard work, don't get me wrong, but that these changes are by God's grace possible. The I is insulin-friendly eating. There are so many different programs, eating programs, different diets and ways that could be a healthy way to interact with food. But what it all, I believe, boils down to is protecting our bodies and treating our bodies healthily. And rather than going on a roller coaster of insulin, sugar spikes and drops, we want to be gentle with our blood sugars, gentle with our insulin, and in order to help impact our mood and our immune system and so many other things that are greatly impacted by our food consumption. So in regards to insulin-friendly eating, this is going to mean eating lots of healthy proteins and healthy fats and healthy carbohydrates, just ones that aren't sugar-laden or maybe high in gluten or other products that actually end up becoming sugar in our bloodstream. So that's a quick synopsis on that. S stands for sleep. Sleep is so critically important to life and to every function of every organ within our body, and then especially to our mood as well as to our immune system health. So getting into good, healthy sleep rhythms can really help be an incredible tool to help us heal on our journey of recovery. H is another thing. Hydration maybe sounds like a simple, silly thing to put in there, but people who struggle with eating disorders know that hydration can be a really big deal. Hydration can be a big deal because it can either be abused with us overhydrating in order to try to squelch hunger cues, or underhydrating in order to avoid bloating. There's so many different things wrapped up with something that may to others seem so simple. So being able to have healthy amounts of hydration to fuel and to help interact properly with hunger cues and satiation cues is really, really key. And exercise is also really key. Of course, it's such a wonderful thing for mood and for health and for cardiovascular development. But again, this can be an area of obsession that those of us with eating disorders can really overdo, leading to adrenal fatigue and all sorts of other messes. So when I say exercise, I'm looking at gentle exercise that is nourishing both physically and emotionally. The R in Nourisher, the very end, is kind of like an anchor. And you can call it reward, you can maybe call it reason, but it's always keeping that why. Why am I doing this in mind? This isn't that, hey, if I don't eat sugar for the whole week, I'll give myself a chocolate bar on the weekend. That's not the idea. I never allow weight to be a reward, and I never ever allow food to be a reward. But this is keeping the long term in mind. for me, for example, one of my long-term goals is to be able to, Lord willing, if I ever have grandchildren in my life one day, to be able to be emotionally and physically and spiritually present and engaged with those children. But I know in order to be able to do that, I have a lot of healing and I need to take care of my body now in order to be ready to do that in the future. So this is keeping, it's like thinking of what are your values? Why are you doing this? What are the things that are important to you and that you're hoping to achieve by going on this journey? Because the journey can be really hard. Some of these things, learning how to notice emotions and, interact with food in a healthy way, these things are not intuitive to many of us who have been struggling with eating disorders, in my case, for decades. So it takes a lot of work and we need to always keep top of mind, why are we doing this? And that is really rewarding for me. So I hope that gives you an idea of where the Nourishing acronym came from, what its purpose is, and what each element represents. And I hope that as it has been a wonderful reflection tool for me, I hope it can also be a nourishing, empowering tool for you. Thanks for joining me.